Good day. In this, I'm going to talk about the need to move on from the STAR format, and I'm primarily referring to senior roles here applying for jobs with high-performing companies. And why do I say it's important that you consider this approach? Well, it's primarily three reasons. The first reason is that in job interviews, in the evolution of job interviews, so to speak, there's rotations. There's 5-year rotations, as I call them. Why 5 years and not 10 years? Well, because 5 years is, statistically speaking, the average time to look for a career change, right? So this is coming from the HR departments, and if you look at various CVs or CVs of successful people, you'll notice, a trend that every 5 years they use, they're looking for a progression, right? Now, this means that every 5 years there's a pressure for them to improve their interviewing skills. Okay, so automatically, if, for example, 10 years ago it was exceptional for people to use the STAR format in job interviews, is something extremely new. It was, like AI. Then 5 years ago it became, the norm. Like if you wouldn't be using the STAR format, then it would be interpreted as a problem, as if you didn't take the interview seriously. Now, what happens is nowadays I see, that there's a shift. There's a trend towards other types of answers, which I'm going to talk about in the second part of this video. The second reason why I think moving on from the STAR format will be beneficial if you're applying for senior roles with high-performing companies is that even the AI is advising you to get more creative in your STAR answers, such as to add learnings to your STAR stories, and so on. So to be clear, am I suggesting people such as software engineers or senior software engineers rather to also move on from the STAR format? Yes, I actually do, because I believe that if you really want to perform in behavioral interviews, if you really want to bias them towards you to get some sort of unfair advantage, so to speak, when compared to other candidates, if you want to do exceptionally well, this is, I believe, the formula for success going beyond the STAR format. And again, I'm going to explain myself in a moment. And the third reason why I believe it's time to move on from the STAR format and get a little bit more creative here is because I see it with some of the best people I work with. Some of the best people I work with never felt constrained about these STAR formats, but rather use as a starting point for them to eventually then evolve into something else. And there's another another way to explain this would be like what is new for very senior types roles, such as director level roles, will become norm in interviewing expectations for more junior types, for software engineers, so to speak, right? So if 5 years ago it was the norm, or rather 10 years ago it was the norm, directors would use the STAR format. 5 years later, it was the software engineers who had to use the STAR format, right? So it works with some of the best people I coach. So this would be the third reason why I believe it's time to move on from the STAR format. Now, what can replace your STAR answers? Okay, so in my opinion, it's now with the generalization of AI, everyone tries to make their answers picture perfect, to perfectly fit, to contain a few metrics, to sound extremely good, to impress in job interviews. I believe that's not the most efficient approach. I believe that the trend that actually works, in my experience at least, it's the more realistic, is the smarter types of answers to trying to do better. Now, what do I mean by smart? By a smart answer, I mean an answer that you focus on communicating the idea you want to transmit to your advantage as much as possible. It's not necessary. It's an anti-templated. It's not following the STAR format. It's not following any specific format on purpose, but it's still structured. Okay, it's structured. Basically, you'd want to adapt your story or the way you communicate your story based on what's the most interesting part to share with your interviewer. Okay, sometimes it could make a ton of sense to present an introduction with some very interesting insight into, hey, how was that environment performing versus, trying to get to the point as quickly as possible towards the action and the results, and all sorts of these variations. But the idea I'm trying to communicate here is that you'd rather focus on your answers sounding smart than templating them in the STAR format. So the way you'd structure them so they would sell you to your strength, so to speak, it very much depends on the story, on the idea that you want to transmit. But I believe you should limit the amount of time spent on trying to structure your answers in whatever format you choose, or rewarding your answers to sound as good as possible, towards trying to sell yourself as the smarter rather, candidate in the job interviews, because ultimately this is how you beat the AI. And in my opinion, if you want to do well in these job interviews, you'll have to give some answers that even the AI will be impressed with, right? So this is where it's trending, and this is, in my opinion, the type of answers that perform best. So I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.